This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There we go.
There
we go.
All right. Sorry about
that. Well, it's all good, bro. It is what it is. It's the life we are in nowadays. It's a different world. Anyway, so Pac-12, is it Pac-8, Pac-6, Pac-4?
It's amazing. This is all happening in real time right now, Big O. I think earlier today, Nicole Auerbach, who works with me at the Pac-12, is going to stick together. Can you hear me okay? We're good?
Okay, go ahead. Nicole Auerbach, that works with you at the Athletic, go ahead.
Yeah, she had reported that it looked like they were going to stick together, that Oregon and Washington were going to stay, and they were going to sort of become the Pac-8 again, right? Which they were years and years ago.
Yeah.
But they didn't reach a media deal this morning. So I would say that it's not finished until everybody who's still in the Pac-12 signs that TV deal and they get locked into a grant of rights. So I think we will see what happens this afternoon, but it's a very interesting story to watch. And certainly I think you look at the ACC, right, and what they're going to do, to try to make Florida State happy, et cetera. All those things in the background that are sort of going on. It's a very interesting time in college football.
So what's going on in the ACC side of this? Because obviously the shakeup over there's a lot of people that are uncomfortable with the deal here because obviously they see the greed and all the money that's going on with the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State earlier this week, obviously their president and board of trustees decided to basically come out and advertise that they're willing to leave the ACC, that they're no longer scared of the grant of rights that they're tied to through 2036, and that they're looking for any sort of revenue stream to make up for the loss that the ACC's TV contract has them at, which if you average it out over the next 13 years will be at least $30 million for every ACC school. They will be that far behind the Big Ten and the SEC in terms of annual income. So, I don't know what the ACC can do. I know that Commissioner Jim Phillips has discussed in the past potentially a partnership with Pac-12 schools to do sort of a, side TV deal where maybe you have a Pac-12, ACC kickoff sort of event where maybe you play some extra. You play a game in early in the year, and that draws some extra TV dollars. But I don't know that any of that is going to make up for the $30 million gap between.
And it's not sexy.
And it's not sexy because there's only a couple of Pac-12 teams that, in all honesty, anybody wants to play, and that's Oregon and Washington. So, I don't know that anybody has any chess moves here, but I also know this. So I don't know that Florida State has a dance partner. Okay, I don't know that the Big Ten and SEC look at Florida State and say, hey, we got to bring those guys in. They have to be a part of our league. If you study the TV ratings from last year, Florida State has 3 of the 4 most watched games in terms of involving an ACC team. But those games were against Florida the day after Thanksgiving. It was the LSU game, the opening game on Monday night when it was the only game everybody was watching. And their bowl game against Oklahoma. So did people tune into those games to watch Florida State, or did they tune into those games because of the matchup and the fact that it was an matchup? And it wasn't, it was exciting for its own purpose. But in the end, if you look at the ACC ratings, like just the league games, there's only 7 games that drew through more than 3 million viewers. Only 7 ACC games. Clemson played in 6 of them. Florida State played in 1. Which was the Clemson game, the Florida State Clemson game. So you just look at the numbers. Who really deserves that money? Who really deserves that raise? It's Clemson, and it's nobody else in the ACC. So I don't know where they go from here. I just know that unless the Big Ten or SEC decides to make a play for Clemson and Florida State, they're not going anywhere because nobody else wants them. And you're not going to make up that gap by going to the Big 12. Big 12's a lateral move. They're making the same money you are here. So, it's an interesting story to watch, and we'll see what people come up with.
And Florida State doesn't belong in the Big 12. If anything, you go to the SEC if you're Florida State. That's where I think it'll be sexy for them. I know the Big 10 will be monetarily, it's great for you, but it's not as sexy for you to go to the Big 10. You'll look kind of odd. Well, I mean, UCLA is going there, right? So it's not like UCLA and what, Stanford? Or no, UCLA and USC are going
Yes,
to.
they're the two schools that are leaving the Pac-12 next year when Oklahoma and Texas move over.
But
to
I
the
get it
SEC.
in their case. It's not so much about sexy. It's just it's not so much about sexy. It's just that your conference is going to crap. So
Yeah, the TV deal for the Pac-12 is garbage. I mean, it's an Apple streaming service TV deal which requires people to subscribe. People will subscribe to watch Messi on Apple TV because he's the greatest soccer player in the world. The MLS as a league is ramping up its game. It's making this effort to bring superstars to the league towards the end of their career. Nobody's making any sort of major changes in the Pac-12. Oregon is not getting sexier. Washington is not getting sexier. Cal and Stanford are not getting sexier. So
that conference hasn't been sexy in over 20 years, dude. Okay,
yeah, and
it's been a long time since that conference has been a power conference. It's always been a lesser conference the last couple of decades. Just that.
And we keep trying to tell ourselves that these leagues are going to continue to expand, but the reality is ESPN has spent a boatload of money to get the SEC to come and join their channel, and Disney has, right? ABC, and that's where they're going to be broadcasting for years. Who's to say that Disney has any more money to bring in a Florida State or a Clemson, right? And to
Right.
sweeten the pot even more and make it worth the while for the SEC. So in the end, if you're just cutting into the pie that they already have, why would the SEC want to invite either one of those teams? And the same thing for the Big Ten, who has to, who's doing it basically between NBC and CBS and Fox. So, look, I just don't see the reality here being where Florida State has an opportunity to make a jump. They may want to. They may really want to. Maybe the live investors from overseas decide to make a play and create a conference in college football, and that's what saves Florida State and Clemson and everybody else. But I think right now there's only so much money to go around.
Brett McMurphy just put Pac-12 unable to get grant of rights signed this morning, and nothing has changed as far as Oregon and Washington joining Big Ten. Sources told Action Network. Ducks and Huskies still expected to be Big Ten bound when finances are worked out, sources said. So McMurphy is reporting that now.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very fluid, and what's funny to me is how everybody's able to report on this, right? We got so many different reporters sort of tapped into different people involved with the Pac-12, and I'm sure different people in the Pac-12 are saying different things to the reporters. Some people may think Oregon and Washington don't want to leave. Others, meanwhile, are saying no, there's no way they stick around for this. So very interesting, man. It's happening in real time, and we will find out, I guess, in the coming days what happens.
All right, the Ruiz stuff. What's happening? Because boy, everybody's writing all kinds of stuff about what's going on fiscally with him. And I know you kind of enlightened us that 80% of the money is not coming from Ruiz anyways, but I'm sure that 20% is a little bit of a concern.
Sure, and I think that's why you're seeing more advertisements from Kings Connection and Miami's NIL saying, "Hey, we need more people to give money to get these kids paid and to keep them happy." What's happening from Ruiz from a legal standpoint? I mean, that's fascinating, right, in its own right. A guy who was a billionaire and really helping the university to having to deal with everything he's dealing with now. That'll be fascinating to watch. But as far as the University of Miami is concerned, unless the feds, in their investigation reveal some major illegal activity that he was involved in regarding the University of Miami, I don't see how this becomes a problem for them. So, other than the fact they got to replace that 20%. So, we will see going forward how much money they can raise, how much this really affects their NIL. But I would sell this to the Miami fans who are worried about that. 6 months ago, this would have been a huge problem. Today, it's not as big a problem, and it's not going to blow up Miami's entire NIL department by any stretch. I think going forward, you will continue to see them land recruits and transfers, and it's not like the money doesn't exist or it's not around.
I talked about this earlier in the week, and I think you and I have talked about this in the past. And I don't know the guy from Adam. And I got to say something. I can't say ever a bad thing about John Ruiz. He's always treated me really nice. Him, Diane, all their people. Every time I've had to, contact them or whatever, and I've had him on the show a couple times. And all I've ever seen him do is give money to young people. And so to me, all I know is good shit about the guy. But my Lord, have you ever been involved with somebody in the public eye that you get the amount of negativity you got? Because I'm sure you got it like I did, from a friend of mine calling me to somebody sending me a text to others sending me a DM and this, that, or whatever. And now all those people are coming back saying, I told you, I told you, I told you. And it's like, I've never seen somebody, I don't know the guy, but I've never seen somebody have that much negativity, and how many people were basically predicting failure or some kind of disconnect or something,
Yeah, I mean, I think he certainly has a lot of people who just don't like him, and that's usually the case with guys who are boisterous, right? He's, as somebody who sort of flaunted his money and talked about, building a stadium for Miami, and all the things he wanted to. He wanted to own the Dolphins. He wanted to own the Marlins. People just love to target, and take shots at dreamers, right? People who have ideas and concepts. And it doesn't surprise me in the least, because I was getting all of those messages throughout the whole process. Every time, somebody asked me about the stadium, and man, is this really going to happen? And is this guy a phony? And is this, and what I love is that people are like genuinely angry, like they hate this
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I sit there and I'm just like, man, why do you care so much? Like,
What did he do to you? Is like,
right.
And by the way, every time I say, hey, by the way, did he? No. And I'm like, okay, all right. Like, okay. And
Yeah.
like I've never seen anybody like that, bro. Like they,
Yeah, he is a lightning rod, but he somewhat brought it on himself, right?
no, I know. His social media is,
and
you know,
and the reality is, and I'm not here to talk bad at John Ruiz at all, because like you said, he's been great to me every time I've talked to him. But the reality is, this doesn't surprise a lot of people because of some of the previous business type ventures he was involved in, with homesteads, sports complex down in, when the Indians were supposing to come to town, and he wanted to build a baseball complex down there, and other things that have sort of fallen through over the years. So, but that's part of business. Businessmen have great success stories, and they have big time failures too.
right.
So, look, we'll
When
see
you
what the
dream,
Fed.
when you dream big, you're going
Yeah,
to fail big. It's just the way
yeah.
it goes.
So we'll see what ends up happening with John Ruiz. I know this. He's accomplished a lot in his life, a lot more than a lot of other people, and hopefully for him it doesn't end up bad. But we'll see. We got a long way to go. When you're in the middle of a federal probe, it doesn't just sort of flip over overnight. We'll see
Yeah.
what they've dug up.
Yeah, and when the feds start investigating you, there's a reason why the feds are investigating you. Those people don't waste time, bro.
Nope.
They when they go, it's because they got some material on you, overall. All right, so practice has been going on. What has stood out so far that you can talk about?
Well, listen, it's really hard when they're in shorts and shoulder pads or shells and helmets, whatever they want to call it. What stood out is just how different they look physically at the point of attack on both sides, offensive and defensive line. The freshmen are huge. There's a difference between the size of the Mario Cristobal recruits and the size of the Manny Diaz recruits. Almost as if Manny and Mario were standing side by side. It'd be a big. So that's what I can tell. I think the kids are happy. They like the offense and defensive changes. But anybody going out there and saying, "Hey, these guys look great in shorts," not very valuable information. Let's see what happens when they get punched in the mouth, and that's why I wish college football had one preseason game, just one. Just give us one sort of opportunity to see these guys play, even if it's like a city game, like FIU in Miami or FAU in Miami, something like that, where you get the starters for a half and then you get all the backups for the second half, and that'd be great. but that's not obviously because of injuries and everything else. They're not going to put those kids at risk. So we will see what happens when they line up. But you can't take anything out of shorts and shells.
All right. What do you got going on in the Athletic so folks can check you out?
Well, I put out those articles this week on the depth charts and what how I put out those articles on the depth charts for offense and defense. We also have some more stories coming out next week, previewing the season. I'm going to do my top 25 predictions for each team in terms of the top 25. Oddly, I forget how they titled it last year, but just odd predictions for each team. So I'll have that sort of a fun read. I'm going to have an all-freshman team. So people around the country say, hey, man, who are the best freshmen this coming year? I'm going to have my own preseason team for that. So there's going to be a ton to read in the Athletic. And, of course, all of this conference zaniness that's going on with the Pac12 and ACC and Florida State and everybody else. We will see what happens. But there's tons to read at the Athletic. I just did a podcast a couple of days ago with Notre Dame's beat writer Pete Sampson for us. We previewed the ACC. We talked about FSU. So if you want to tune in and listen to any of that stuff, you can.
There you go. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro and catch his work at The Athletic. Better yet, subscribe like I and many others do so you can get all the local stuff and the national stuff, like Mrs. Auerbach breaking some of that college football news. Go to The Athletic and check it out. Manny, have a great weekend, my brother. We will talk next week.
Same you. Take care.
Thank you, sir. There you go, Manny Navarro and our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report. Go to caneswear.com, and if you order over $99, you will get free shipping.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.